If you have found a great workplace in Germany, that's awesome. But this is not that video. This video is literally only about negative aspects of working in Germany and the general problems with work environments that I have discovered in my about 20 years of working here in various places as a nurse, as a freelancer, and while as well as after studying physics, collecting a pretty broad variety of experiences over various fields. This video is explicitly not about any positive aspects of work culture in Germany. That's for another time, okay? The intention of this video is to raise awareness of problems in German workplaces, mainly because many people are still idolizing this aspect of Germany when thinking about immigrating. I also want to acknowledge that, in comparison to many other places in the world, including the US, Germany is a massive social state. It offers support and safety, and many people take this for granted. But in no way is this of interest to this video, and it would be totally off topic. Please keep in mind, your experience doesn't devalidate mine and vice versa. Criticizing one part of something does not equate to hating everything about it. Guten Tag! Today we're talking about one of my least favorite topics because I think that a lot of Germans don't agree with my views on it. But this channel is not for you Germans. This channel is for people who think about coming here, learning the language, and immersing themselves in the culture. So here you go. German work ethics. What are they all about? Why are you asking me that? I'm not working in corporate anymore. Oh, I did work in corporate. So I have worked in German hospitals and in a bunch of German companies as well. I am a former nurse, now physicist, and I think I have collected a bunch of experience with the German work culture, especially in the research and development sector, but also in, the low-paid social sector. Now I put in timestamps to this video so you can skip to the next section if you're more interested in the academic jobs, because I will start talking about my job as a nurse first. As a student nurse, you have to work in a bunch of different hospitals, so you see it all basically. And after I finished my studies, I worked also in a nursing home, so I've seen a lot of different workplaces. I would say by far, I have never been as exploited as I was in this social and care system. Germany has one of the best healthcare systems. Yeah, I really do think so. Unless you get a staph infection, we really are not good at managing that. But I truly believe that the German health system is actually good system. However, it cares more about the patients than its workers. And I don't think that's right. It should be equally as important, because if you don't care of your workers, they can't take care of the patients. As a nurse, I would say I experienced this phenomenon that it is okay for everyone to be not okay but you. If you're a nurse, you cannot call in sick. I mean, you can, but everyone's gonna hate you for it. So unless you can't walk and you have a really high fever, you're gonna come in. And that kind of mentality didn't even change in 2020 when a pandemic hit. I think that says a lot. But apart from that culture of expecting people to come in even though they're sick, you're expected to work overtime all the time. And that is something I really didn't like. I don't work for free. And the next thing that made me quit the healthcare sector would be the hierarchy is just insane. And that is the case with a lot of companies. So if you're looking for a job in Germany, look out for a flat hierarchy. In university-like structures in R&D, this will probably be the case, but in a lot of corporate jobs, it's also not. And in a lot of more hands-on work-related jobs, there's always a strong hierarchy, and I personally find that very, very stressful. So if you're not willing to work in that kind of environment, I recommend not to come to Germany, actually, because it can be very disheartening at times, and you really have to be a very good team player and a person that can deal with being bossed around. In German working culture, it takes a long time to be accepted as a fellow worker. You will not be immediately welcomed. You have to prove yourself, and people do that by working these overtime hours. People do that by working more than they have to. There is nobody that tells you, yeah, you should go home and be with your family if you want to. There is nobody telling you it's okay to work a little less or take a day off. A lot of people don't say it out loud, but it's really expected of you to be there, to be available all the time, and for your boss to be able to reach you all the time, which I think is very unhealthy. Although I think a lot of German magazines pick up on this trend of work-life balance, there is really no such thing today if you're just a normal working person. I mean, if you find a job with a good work-life balance, you're really very, very lucky. You should keep that job and just work that job till the end of your life. Those are really hard to come by. I would say that a good team, like a team that appreciates you and with a flat hierarchy where nobody, even though they are the boss, are treating you like you're less than, I would really cherish that. So if you find that, and I have found that in teams that I worked with, and I really adored working there. So if you find that, just hold on to it. So let's talk about the corporate world. The corporate world is even more filled up with this hustle culture. I can only judge from the jobs that I worked, but when I look at the R&D sector, which is mostly where I worked, and basically only worked R&D jobs, it was always so weird that everyone was staying late, everyone was staying until the evening, even though they had small kids. And especially if you're like a new guy, you're supposed to leave the office last. Even though you've been there 10 hours or something, you're supposed to leave the office last. And you're supposed to be kind of one of the first to come in. And in a company with a healthy culture, it will be more accepted if you leave at a normal time, like after maybe 9 hours or something, but certainly still not after 8 hours. The only place where I've ever seen that is where a lot of people with MBAs work, or in the HR department, where there's just office work and not anything that requires like an education in the hard sciences. If you are an engineer, if you come from the hard sciences, and especially in small companies, you will work overtime, and a lot of overtime, and it will probably not be paid, but if they have like a card system where they log you in and out and they will see how many hours you do, you will accumulate, I don't know, when I left, I had like 70 hours overtime, and I was one of the people with the least amount of hours. And after a certain amount of hours, your team leader will tell you, oh, you got to watch your hours, you got to stay at home for 1 or 2 days or something, because they will certainly not pay you. You will never see that money for the hours that you work. It will always be given back to you in terms of the day off, which I think is like the worst way to pay someone for putting in that time. I mean, you stayed there, you invested that time. Like at the time when I worked, my kid was a baby and I invested that time. You cannot give me back that time by giving me time. I deserve the money for that. But this culture and this demand does not exist, and you cannot claim that money. You will not get it. Any company out there, even the hospitals I worked, they will always give you back the hours in terms of a day off. So you have to be aware of that. That time is gone. If you need to take time, you need to take it. And I think that culture of having people do hours over hours more and unpaid, that should end. I really think that should end. And a phenomenon that I've seen so much in this line of work, especially in R&D and high profile jobs, is people who go on parental leave. And for parental leave, you can basically reduce your hours and you will earn less. But I've seen these people thrive, and they just work just as well as before, even get more done, but they get paid less. And I've seen this time after time, and a lot of my bosses agreed with me on that. So I really believe that this German hustle culture is just making people sick and inefficient, and we could work a lot less and still achieve the same or even better than we are doing right now, especially in R&D. And I just wish that, especially in the research and development sectors, that this culture would just change, because it's so toxic and it's taking people away from their families and from their lives and making them miserable. And I see a lot of people leave because of that and doing more low profile jobs as well. So I really think it's hurting the industry and making companies less efficient. But people are not having it. Like the higher ups, they don't want to hear it. They only want to see you be there and sit on your ass as long as possible. And the people around you in your office, they will feel obligated to sit on their asses. And even if they just read emails in this last hour, they're sitting there, they're physically there. So everyone can see that they're putting in the work, even though most of them really aren't, because the last hours in the office, everyone's just tired and drinking coffee or trying to get through it and get home, but it's still this culture of the longer you stay, the better of an employee you are. And this even continued throughout the pandemic in 2020 and 2021 and now 2022, where people were obviously forced into the home office. Like my employer and all employers of my friends, they were not willing to send people in the home office. They were actually fighting this for as long as possible. The safety of people working in places, it's not a priority, sadly, in a lot of companies. I mean, on paper, it might be, and they look out for, things like diversity and anti-bullying seminars and that kind of stuff, and the health of your back. You get free checkups from doctors that come to companies and like, hey, let me check your vision, let me check your back, you want a jab of some kind. That kind of thing, that kind of formal, you can check it off on some piece of paper kind of effort. Yeah, they put that effort in, but it's not really a real effort to make the people who work for you more happy. Sure, they will put up free water and fruit for you to take home, and gosh, those apples are always so hard and they taste so bad. Like, I don't know why companies still do. At least give us some nice fruit, not this shit. Like, it's obviously the cheapest of the cheap, and they just put it in the kitchen for everyone. Look, we're taking care of you. Here's a fruit basket. Thanks. Don't really need that. Like, I want organic anyway. I'm a hipster. That kind of thing, and free water and free coffee. Like, yeah. Dude, that is standard today. That is not good company culture. That is standard. Pay us more. We want more money. We don't want more Apple. Unless it's iPhones, I guess. And then the most annoying thing, especially throughout 2020 and the following years, is that people were always expected to come in even though they are sick. I don't know if that is a German thing, but it's a thing in Germany. You are expected to come to work even though you are sick. If your face is covered in snort, doesn't matter. As long as you can walk, you can come in and work. So in the first part, I mentioned that I have seen that a lot when I was working in the hospital, and people were always expecting you to come in. And in fact, once I was questioned, like, you have, 20 days of sick leave in 2 years. Like, how come you have so many days of sick leave? And it's paid for in Germany. Like, from the first day, it's paid by your employer. And I was like, well, I wanted to make sure I recover and don't get anybody else sick. And then they were asking me, but often you have like sick days before the weekend or before when you had like a day off or something. And I didn't even remember that. But people really assume that it's called krank machen, so that you play sick. Du machst krank because you're too lazy to work, even though you have just like a few sick days each year, which is totally normal. And throughout the pandemic, the sick days actually went down in Germany because people were so afraid to lose their jobs. So yeah, I think this is a huge deal, a huge problem here in Germany with this whole hustle culture. This odd work ethic that just, if you put in enough hours, if you show up, if you show presence and you're there physically, that people will appreciate you more, and they actually will. Oftentimes, it doesn't matter as much what the outcome of your projects, of your work is. It seems to matter more that people can see you sitting on your desk. So if you find yourself working in a German company and it's like that, try to find another job, because there are companies that are not like this. There are companies with a healthy work ethic and work culture, and you can find them. Try to get a certificate, try to get an education like after hours, try to do some course or something, but get out of that job because it's not healthy and it's not getting better. And I personally left the jobs behind me that were like that. I'm not willing to ever work in a German company that is like that again. So yeah, if you're coming to this country, just be aware that there is such a kind of understanding of good working behavior, and it can be pretty stressful at times. Anyway, I wish you all well with your jobs, whatever they are. Maybe you want to let me know what you're working as in the comments, and thanks for watching. Tschüss!